Early one morning in a small house, a couple had just finished breakfast and were getting ready to go to work. The wife tied her shoes and called out, "Husband, hurry up. Let's go early so we can rest early. Otherwise, the scorching sun will make it impossible to work." The man, bustling about inside, replied, "I'm all done. Let me just grab the hoe, and we can go now before the sun gets too strong." Chien, sitting on the porch, nodded and looked up at the sky, sighing to herself. What kind of weather is this? Scorching sun every day, not a single drop of rain. How are we supposed to work? She stood up. Her husband, Can, just came out and heard her complaining. "Rain is God's business. How can we control it, wife? Let's just try to do as much as we can. Every little bit earns money to send to Linh for her studies." "Oh, Can," Chien said, "it's our fault for being so old. We can't earn much. I wonder if Linh is living well up there, how her health is. It's been so long since she sent us a letter. I'm so worried." Can chuckled. "Our daughter is grown. She knows how to take care of herself. Don't worry so much. She's studying a lot, so she probably doesn't have time to write home. Even if she did, it would take a while for a letter to arrive. If I have some free time this afternoon, I'll stop by the post office to check." Chien nodded, but suddenly the mention of her daughter made her feel an inexplicable discomfort. A strange heat flared within her. "Oh, Can, why do I feel so anxious and restless, like a fire burning inside me just by thinking of her?" Can, annoyed, replied. "Woman, you're strange. We have endless work to do, and you're just standing there worrying about nonsense. Our daughter is intelligent and quick-witted. She knows how to handle herself. Nothing bad could possibly happen to her." "But suddenly I feel so uneasy," Chien insisted. "I'm getting goosebumps all over." She pulled up her sleeve to show him her arm, covered in goosebumps. Ken's tone became serious. "Really? What for?" "I don't know, Can, but I have goosebumps all over and an indescribable dread. I'm worried about Linh. Could something have happened to her up there? Or maybe it's just because I miss her so much and worry she's not eating enough or isn't healthy." "If you miss her that much," Ken suggested, "then after we finish weeding in a few days, we'll go up to the city to visit her." Chien immediately agreed. It had been quite a while since they'd seen their daughter, and she wanted to check if Linh was doing well in the city. Her husband's reassuring words calmed her somewhat, and she prepared for work. The couple each carried some tools, including a hoe, and set off. As they walked past their neighbor's house, a woman called out to them. "Oh, Mr. Can, Mrs. Chien, going to work so early? My family hasn't even started yet, and you two are already out?" "Hello, Lou," Chien replied. "It's too hot today, so we're trying to go early and come back early to rest. We're not as young as we used to be. Even a little sun makes us exhausted. Goodness, you two are so hardworking, I feel ashamed." Lou exclaimed, "I'm still messing around and haven't prepared anything. You're both old, so it's fine to do less work. Why push yourselves so hard?" Chien shook her head. "How can we do less? If we cut back on work, where will the money come from for Lin's studies? It's tiring, but we have to push through so she can get a proper education and have a better life than us. As parents, neither of us wants her to end up toiling in the fields like us." "Yes, you two truly have progressive ideas, unlike my family," Lou said. "We just think that when our children grow up, they can work with their parents or find some way to earn money." Ken interjected, "No, it's different now, my dear. Children, whether they're bright or not, must go to school. Only with an education can they hope for a good life. Luckily, our Linh is diligent, but many children here aren't very good at studying. Still, as long as they're well-behaved and study, they'll eventually be able to provide for their parents, at least somewhat. That's why my wife and I will do whatever it takes to ensure Linh gets an education." Ken's words were indeed true. Lou understood his point but didn't flatter their daughter. Ken wanted to emphasize how important education was in this new era. However, not everyone here fully grasped or followed that idea. Lou, the neighbor, knew Linh well, beautiful, talented, and incredibly well-behaved. Lou herself was proud of Can and Chien's efforts. They had struggled for a long time to have this one child. Back then, the mindset of valuing sons over daughters was still prevalent here, and many people initially looked down on them. But after Linh grew up, only studying and helping her parents, everyone acknowledged Linh as an incredibly talented, obedient, and lovely girl. Speaking of Linh, Lou suddenly remembered something and asked, "Oh, so Linh is back. Why aren't you two home with her? After all this time, your only child finally comes home, and you're not there but rushing off to work." The couple looked at each other in surprise. "What are you talking about?" Ken asked. "Just now you mentioned Linh and it reminded me. Why isn't she home? What do you mean she's back? How is she back? Tell us clearly." Lou seemed taken aback. She recalled something from late last night. Well, late last night I saw someone who looked like Lin walking past my house. She looked so much like Lin that I thought it was her. Is she not back? Not at all, Chien replied. If she were home, why would my husband and I be going to work? We'd be home with her. Oh, so it wasn't her? Lu said. I just thought that maybe it was so late, and my eyes were playing tricks on me, seeing a figure that resembled Lin. It must have been a trick of the light. Hearing Lu's words, Chien's sense of dread intensified. Unsure if the person Lu saw was her daughter, she asked anxiously, Is that true, Lu? Did you really see my daughter here? Lu looked troubled, shook her head, and replied, I'm not entirely sure, Mrs. Chien. I'm just telling you what I saw. I woke up last night to use the restroom, and when I opened the door, I saw someone walking past my house with a backpack and carrying a large bag. At a glance, her figure looked like Lin's. I see Lin often, so I know what she looks like. I almost called out to her, but she passed by quickly, and it was late, so I thought I'd let her go home and talk to her today, but it wasn't her. Can now confidently stated, No, Lu, our daughter isn't back yet. I plan to visit her in a few days after we finish our work. I wasn't sure either, Lu reiterated. I just saw someone who looked like her. Can didn't question it further, but Chien was different. Now the anxiety was clearly written on her face. Can, I'm suddenly so worried. Maybe we should go there. What's wrong with you, wife? Lu just made a mistake. There's nothing to worry about. What are you doing? If Lin knew, she wouldn't be able to concentrate on her studies. Hearing her husband's rebuke, Chien lowered her head and reluctantly followed Can. Lu stood there, trying to lighten the mood. It's all right, Mrs. Chien. Lin is the smartest and most resourceful person in our commune. She knows how to help her parents, she's thoughtful and independent. I'm sure nothing bad has happened. As the two women talked, Chien finally nodded. Perhaps it's just because I miss her so much. All right, let's hurry, Can, so we can work early before the sun gets too hot. The couple said goodbye to Lu and left. A little later, Can said, Let's split up, wife. You stay here and I'll go to that side. Chien agreed, setting her tools down and beginning to weed. Can followed a narrow path to the other side of the field, a short distance away, and then stopped. Without hesitation, he lowered his head and began to work. Soon, the familiar sound of his hoe striking the earth echoed. They had left early to avoid the scorching sun, but perhaps they were mistaken, for the sky, which had been clear moments before, now suddenly darkened. Black clouds gathered overhead, and Can felt a pang of relief. He was glad because it hadn't rained in a long time and the continuous dry spell had left the land parched. So when he saw signs of impending rain, he was overjoyed. Wife, look, it's going to rain? You're right, Can, it's really going to rain. I'm so happy, Chien replied. Let's hurry and do a little more before the heavy rain comes. Chien agreed, and overhead the black clouds continued to loom. The sky grew dimmer, turning a murky white dark, obscuring Can's vision. He decided to finish just one more section before heading home to avoid the rain. The sound of his hoe continued steadily, even a bit more urgently. But then, the sound that reached Can's ears was different. Up until now, it had been the thud of the hoe hitting the dry, hardened earth. But this time, he heard a distinct clink as if hitting something else. He immediately stopped, thinking he had hit a rock. He bent down to pick it up and throw it aside. But the object he picked up was something else entirely. Holding it in his hand, he squinted. Is this a silver bracelet? The thick black clouds seemed to want to swallow everything, making it impossible for Can to be sure of what he held. He only knew it was a silver-colored bracelet. He turned it over and over, and his expression showed that he realized it was a valuable silver bracelet. The only question was why it was there and whose it was. As he thought about it, a sudden chill ran down his spine because the bracelet felt eerily familiar. Deep in thought, he suddenly heard footsteps and rustling leaves nearby, startling him. Goodness, wife, you scared me, Can exhaled in relief. Chien, now annoyed, said, Are you deaf, old man? I called you so many times and you didn't answer. What are you talking about? I didn't hear anything. What are you doing? It's about to rain, let's go home. Without waiting for her to scold him further, Can didn't intend to explain. He was still thinking about the voice he thought he heard. He didn't ask about it again, but pulled Chien's hand and then brought the bracelet in front of her. Look at this, wife, I just dug it up. Chien looked at the silver bracelet, unsure. But it looks so familiar, doesn't it? Chien took the bracelet. Although the sky was quite dark, the moment she saw it, she felt a jolt of dread, a deep, unsettling feeling. She had to bring it close to her eyes to examine it properly. Can stood silently beside her, waiting. In the sky, the first rumble of thunder echoed. Streaks of lightning flashed in the distance. The light from those lightning bolts briefly illuminated the spot where the couple stood, revealing the object in Chien's hand clearly. In an instant, Can stiffened, waiting. He saw his wife's hand trembling and asked, "What's wrong, wife?" "This bracelet. It's Lynn's, our Lynn's." "What did you say?" "This bracelet is our daughter's," Can asked, his voice trembling. "Are you sure?" "Of course I'm sure. This is the bracelet her aunt gave her when she started university. I couldn't possibly mistake it. Look, it even has her name engraved on the back." Can took the bracelet, turning it over to the back. Indeed, it was Lynn's. "But why is it here?" he asked. "If you ask me, who would I ask? I was about to ask you." Chien's entire body began to tremble. Can unconsciously lowered his head, looking at the spot where he had just been hoeing. He didn't know what he was thinking, but Chien saw her husband trembling more and more. "Can, what's wrong? Don't scare me. That look of utter terror on your face is making me panic too." She couldn't stand it anymore and asked, "Can, what's wrong?" "You were talking, and then you suddenly started staring at the ground." Chien looked at her husband, then down at where he was focused. Suddenly, she too felt a jolt of dread. However, she dared not think further. Opposite her, Can stood rigid as a statue, his gaze fixed downwards, his hands and feet trembling. Then, as if understanding nothing, he grabbed his hoe and plunged it into the earth with furious strength, as if trying to dig up everything. Chien, seeing this, panicked. "Can, what are you doing? Why are you suddenly digging?" The first blow of his hoe resonated with a deafening, skull-splitting sound. At that very moment, raindrops began to fall. At first, they were just a soft pitter-patter, but they quickly grew heavier until the entire area was shrouded in rain. The rain poured down in a white curtain. Can and Chien were still out in the field near some trees where the rain wasn't as dense as in the open, but it quickly soaked them both. Chien saw her husband suddenly digging with all his might and cried out in alarm, "What are you doing? Let's go home, it's raining heavily, Can." Can said nothing, simply pouring all his strength into digging up the earth. What had initially been dry and hard now became soft and muddy after the rain, and finally, a thick, sticky mess that was incredibly difficult to dig. He stopped hoeing, throwing the hoe aside, and knelt on the ground, digging with his bare hands. "What are you doing? Are you crazy? Stop it. Let's go home, it's thundering and lightning like this. We'll be struck by lightning if we stay here." True to her words, the lightning in the sky flashed more frequently with each passing moment. Blinding streaks of light, capable of striking and killing anything they hit. But Can, at this moment, seemed crazed, oblivious to everything around him, continuing to dig into the earth with his fingernails. "Lynn, please don't be. Don't be." He seemed to be thinking, perhaps of the beloved child he feared for, why she might be here. He dared not be sure, nor did he want to believe it. But the presence of the bracelet and a father's intuition made him contemplate a horrific possibility. Despite his wife pulling his shoulder, Can tried to resist and continued to dig, digging like a madman. Chien, thinking her husband had gone insane and fearing he would be struck by lightning, desperately tried to pull him away. "Stop, Can. What's wrong with you?" The two, one pulling, one digging, continued for 15-20 minutes before stopping. Chien, having used all her strength to pull her husband, suddenly felt his body go limp. They both collapsed onto the ground. Chien immediately screamed, "What are you doing? Why are you digging like a madman?" In the flash of lightning, Chien saw her husband's face turn ashen. His eyes were wide with a different kind of horror, oblivious to her. His wide, vacant eyes made her stop scolding him. She swallowed and turned her head. Until now, she had only focused on pulling her husband, so she hadn't noticed what was on the ground. She was stunned to see that Can had dug a hole with his bare hands. Another flash of lightning illuminated the sky, and at that moment, Chien's eyes went wide with terror. "My daughter, what happened to Lynn? What happened to Lynn?" Not only was she screaming, but Chien rushed towards the hole Can had dug. What lay beneath was the body of their daughter, Lynn. Chien collapsed, hugging her daughter's body, sobbing uncontrollably. Can stood rigidly behind her, his face soaked with rain and tears, just as his intuition had told him. Their only daughter inexplicably buried here. Her body was covered in dirt and sand, her eyes closed, seemingly vacant, with no breath left. The lightning continued to flicker, thunder rumbled across the sky. The heavy raindrops fell like tears from the two elderly parents, who were collapsing on the ground, crying out in heartbreaking agony. The torrential rain lasted for about 2 hours before finally stopping. That was when a few people dared to open their doors. Lou stood at her doorway and said, "Goodness, that was quite a downpour. The air feels so cool and fresh now." As she was about to go back inside, Lou suddenly saw figures approaching from the field. They looked drenched, making her stumble. Recognizing them, she was surprised. "Oh, Mr. Can, Mrs. Chien, goodness, you must have been caught in the rain and gotten soaked." She stepped out of her house to inquire. "Heavens, you two didn't make it back in time, did you? You're completely drenched." Unlike their morning encounter, Lou now saw that the couple showed no signs of cheerfulness, not even bothering to answer her question. Lou was a bit taken aback and asked again, "Who? Who is that, Mr. Can?" As soon as she finished speaking, Lou noticed that not only two people were approaching, but someone was being carried on Can's back. Before she could ask, Lou stepped back and pointed to Can's back. "What? What about Lin? What?" Lou didn't need to finish. She recognized the person Can was carrying, Lin, but Lin no longer looked like a normal person, or rather, she was dead. "Mrs. Chien, what happened? What's wrong with Lin?" Chien, walking beside her husband, couldn't hold back her tears. She collapsed to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. Can, his eyes utterly vacant, looked up at Lou and said in a short, hollow voice, "She's dead." Can offered no further explanation. Lou recoiled subconsciously, unable to stand, and fell backwards, trembling uncontrollably. It was late yesterday evening. The exact time was unclear, but Lou was getting up to use the restroom. Outside, a young woman in her 20s was walking quickly, dressed in long clothes, carrying a backpack and a large bag. That person was Lin. The reason she was there was that she had encountered some difficulties on her journey, which caused her to return to her familiar village at this late hour. It was around 9 or 10 p.m. Lin wasn't sure, but she knew it was very late, so everyone would be asleep. As a village girl, she found the deserted countryside, with no lights, only moonlight, just enough to see her way, somewhat frightening. Lin walked quickly, nervously looking around. She seemed afraid of ghosts. A girl walking alone at this hour truly couldn't help but be afraid. She had had to arrange things to get here, and earlier than expected, so the incidents that occurred were unforeseen. In fact, she wasn't alone. She had a friend whose house was on the other side, so they walked together for a short distance. Lin walked very quickly, hoping to get home to her parents. She hadn't been able to notify them because letters took a long time to reach here. Lin walked so fast that she didn't notice someone opening the door when she passed Lou's house, and Lou herself only caught a glimpse of her for a few brief moments. Last night, Lou was walking a short distance near her house. Lin's footsteps slowed somewhat. She didn't know where she was going, but she felt safe as she got closer to home. However, when she was only about 10 steps from her house, Lin suddenly saw two figures standing by the side of the road. In the moonlight, their rigid posture frightened her. She stopped and called out, "Who's there?" The two figures remained still, appearing to be looking at her, but she couldn't make out who they were. "Who is it?" she asked again. She still couldn't recognize them, but Lin felt their figures were strangely familiar, just like her parents. So she asked, "Father, Mother, is that you, Father, Mother?" Suddenly, Lin received an answer to her question. "Yes, it's your parents, child." As soon as the voice finished speaking, a cloud moved away from the bright moon. The moonlight returned, allowing Lin to clearly see the faces turned towards her. "It's Mother and Father. Goodness, you scared me. Why are you two standing here?" Said, happily walking closer without a second thought. As she walked, she heard Chien's reply. "Your parents are here, waiting for you to come home." "How did you know I was coming home and stood here waiting?" "You told your mother, remember? You sent a letter saying you'd be home today." Lin paused, recalling the last letter she'd sent to her parents. She didn't know how long ago it was, so she couldn't remember clearly. Lin said, "Oh, did I really say I'd be home today? I completely forgot." "Goodness, if that's the case, you didn't have to stand here. I feel so guilty." The two figures just nodded. Ken's voice then echoed, "Come home now, your parents have already prepared your room." Hearing her parents, Lin simply assumed they had tidied her room in anticipation of her arrival today. "Thank you, Mother and Father. Let's go home ourselves, why stand here any longer?" She confidently walked towards the house in front of them, but then someone's hand pulled her back. "Huh, Father, what is it? Let's go home, Father." Ken suddenly shook his head and his voice echoed again. At this moment, Lin felt as though her mouth couldn't open properly. "No, our house isn't here, our house is somewhere else." "Huh, Father, why isn't our house here? Did we move to the fields?" Ken almost gestured towards the field. Lin was utterly confused. "This is our field, Father. Why is our house there?" "Your parents sold the house to someone else. Our house is out there now." "That's why your parents are standing here, waiting for you." Lin suddenly felt a chill when she heard her father's voice. It sounded as if it echoed from somewhere far away, not from the person standing in front of her. Lin was startled. "Father, Mother, what's wrong? I'm scared." Ken suddenly grinned. Feeling something was terribly wrong, Lin tried to turn back but was gripped tightly by his hand. He spoke, then laughed chillingly. "I am your father." Lin flinched, pulling back, but his hand held her fast. Before she could react further, a chilling sensation, accompanied by a slimy touch, ran down her shoulder. She looked again, horrified to see Ken's hand, now completely black. It wasn't intact. It was festering, putrid, swarming with wriggling maggots. Linh immediately turned her face away in terror, no longer looking at her father's face. Instead, it was something utterly grotesque, with two hollow, sunken eyes. She wanted to scream for help, but it was too late. The thing lunged at her, throwing her down onto the road. It covered Lin's mouth with its hand, then forced something black and gooey into her, rendering her unconscious. A short while later, on the deserted road, only the young girl lay still in the middle of the path. Beside her lay her bag and backpack. No one else was there. Linh lay motionless, then suddenly her body convulsed violently, and the sound of bones grinding within her faintly echoed. She slowly stood up, turned around, and walked in the opposite direction, heading towards her family's field. In a small house in the village, a girl with an abnormal mind walked on. Where she went, there was a dragging sound of footsteps, and the village dogs began barking in unison. The dogs barked like that, but absolutely no one paid attention. Perhaps it was because, in the countryside, dog barking was perfectly normal. They barked at shadows, at the wind, all day long, and no one cared. Only a few who were disturbed from their sleep would grumble impatiently. "Damn it! Whose dog is barking so loudly in the middle of the night, not letting anyone sleep?" After complaining, they would close their eyes and try to sleep again, though they still had the unsettling feeling of hearing dragging footsteps outside. Yet they didn't bother to investigate, simply trying to resume their sleep. Back in the present, after the heavy rain had finally stopped, before the weather could bring any relief, news had already plunged the village into a gloomy atmosphere. Throughout the hamlet and the entire village, news of Lin's death quickly spread. People rushed over asking, "Everyone, what happened? I heard Linh died. She was still studying in the city." "I don't know," someone replied. "We just got here and haven't heard the specifics. How did the girl die, do you know? She was studying, you said." "And she came back when?" "I'm asking the same thing, but she didn't die in the city. I heard vaguely that she died here." "Goodness, how could such a thing happen? Poor girl, and her parents too, they only had one child." One woman, visibly scared, turned to the others and whispered, "Do you want to know where she died?" "Yes, tell us," another urged. "I just asked Lou and she told me." "Where did she die? How did she die?" The woman, her face filled with dread, spoke slowly. "I don't know why she died, but Lou said the girl died in the field and she was buried underground. Ken himself dug her up." What are you saying?" "SHH, keep your voice down. There's a tragedy in their house and you're screaming." "It's because I heard you talking and I was so panicked." "So what happened? Why was the girl buried out there?" "I don't know, but Lou said that when she saw the girl last night, her whole body was covered in dirt, and so were the parents." And Lou said Ken himself confirmed he dug up the girl in the field. "Goodness, how could such a thing happen? And do you know what else? Tell us. How did he know the girl was out there and started digging?" "Didn't you hear? This morning, the couple went to work early to avoid the sun. They were hoeing for a while, and just as it was about to rain, Ken accidentally hit Lin's bracelet out there. He didn't know what to think, so he dug, and indeed, the girl was lying underground." When I heard it, I felt shivers all over. Goosebumps popped up all over my body. As the women talked, one said, "It's like the girl came home last night, around 9 or 10 p.m. Lou said she saw her when she got up to pee and walked past her house, but I don't understand why she didn't go home and was buried out there." Another woman immediately became distraught. "So she just died? I thought she had been dead for a long time before being dug up." Another neighbor who had met Lin's friend also ran over. Her friend said they both came back together but had some incident on the way, so they separated. "So, could Lin's friend have harmed her?" "No," Lou said. "She saw Lin walking by herself at that time. They separated at the crossroads, so that's not possible." "Then why did she die?" "I already told you. Maybe she was harmed by someone when she came back here. She's a pretty girl, talented, and many people here noticed her." The group of women huddled together, discussing the matter, so engrossed that they didn't notice. Sitting nearby was a man, his face completely pale. His hands and feet trembled uncontrollably, and he bit his lip several times. Then, suddenly, the sound of feet rushing out of Ken's house was heard. The old man was clearly terrified. As he ran, he mumbled to himself, "Oh no, goodness, something terrible has happened." The faster he ran, the more he repeated the phrase, "Buried underground, buried underground, buried underground, it can't be." He kept running until he reached a house whose door was ajar. When someone opened the door, he exclaimed, "Old man, something's happened. What is it? Why are you looking for me?" Old man, his voice weak and his face filled with extreme panic, asked, "What happened? Tell me." That thing has happened." At the mention of that thing, Old Man immediately froze, his legs turning to jelly. He could no longer hold his sturdy walking stick, letting it fall to the ground. He stumbled backward, stammering, "That thing, in your family. Is it true, old man? Is that thing, the one who died in the village, is it true?" Old Man asked this because he had only heard that someone had died in the village, and it was Linh, Can and Chien's daughter. However, he wasn't clear on the situation, and his health was poor, so he couldn't go to see for himself. The man now nodded. The girl was buried underground, buried in the field of their house. Goodness, who would have done such a thing? I don't know, old man, but what should we do now? Old Man immediately shook his head. I am this old, do you think that master is still alive? When I heard about this, I was only 30, and he was already old and gray. I am 80 this year, so that master is surely not alive anymore. Then what should we do now, old man? The man asked. Tell everyone to quickly leave this village. Whoever can run, run, otherwise this village will become a village of the dead. But no one will believe me, old man. Wouldn't it be better if you told them? Old Man nodded, but before he could move, he felt dizzy and collapsed to the ground, alarming the man. Old man, what's wrong? Old man, wake up. Heavens, what should I do? What should I do? Old Man had suddenly fainted without any clear reason. The man had no choice but to carry the old man into the room and then rush out to call young Hien. Hien, come here, uncle wants you to go quickly to young Hien, the man instructed. Here's some money for snacks. Stay here with old man. If he wakes up, run to Ken's house and tell him, okay? Hien nodded obediently and went inside. Old Man lived alone, so the man didn't feel comfortable leaving him by himself. Meanwhile, at Ken's house, people were bustling and agitated. The sounds of the grieving couple's cries mingled with the villagers' hushed discussions. Many showed fear upon hearing about Lin's death. Everyone had different thoughts. One person, mourning her, said, "Oh, what a cruel fate. Such a well-behaved, beautiful, and intelligent girl. Her parents worked so hard for her education, thinking she would graduate and care for them. And now she's lying here, lifeless. What a tragedy." The crowd around them nodded in agreement. Can and Chien, hearing this, cried even louder, yet somewhere people whispered to each other. "But I find it strange, folks. Did you notice? After her mother bathed her, there were no wounds on her body at all. But there's this strange, lingering foul smell. I don't know why." Those who heard weren't sure. Really, if someone harmed her, there should be wounds, right? But not a single scratch or bruise. Oh, that is strange then. So how did the girl die? I don't know. We'll have to wait for the authorities to investigate. How would I know such things? Just as this person said, when Lin's body was brought back, Can and Chien couldn't bear to let their daughter remain dirty, so they bathed her. And there were indeed no wounds on her body. However, because they were overcome with grief, they paid no attention to this detail. Due to the many suspicions that Lin's death was a result of foul play, local authorities were notified to investigate. But before any progress could be made, another incident occurred. By then, dusk had fallen, and with the morning's rain, the clouds hadn't fully dispersed, making the sky darker than usual. It was only 5 p.m., but everything was pitch black. At this time, Tone, the man who had run to Old Man's house that morning, was sitting in a corner, bewildered. Since returning, Tone hadn't rested, continuously helping Ken's family with Lin's funeral arrangements. Only now was he sitting, contemplating what Old Man had told him, that everyone should quickly leave the village. Tone truly didn't know how to begin. He knew that if he spoke, no one would believe him. There were already several officials here investigating, and he might even be accused of spreading superstition. Shaking off this worry, Tone thought of something else. He suddenly remembered that young Hien had been told that morning to report to him when Old Man woke up, but she hadn't come yet. Perhaps Old Man was still unconscious, or the child had forgotten his instructions and gone home. Just as he thought this, Tone suddenly heard footsteps running from outside, accompanied by a child's chilling voice. "Uncle Tone, Old Man is awake?" "He's awake. When did he wake up?" "Yes, he just woke up. I waited for him to wake up, then I came to find you. I'm going home now, it's very late." Tone nodded, letting the child go. He didn't linger there, but immediately headed towards Old Man's house, intending to bring him back to talk to everyone. By the time Tone arrived, it was completely dark. Old Man's house was quite far from Can's, requiring some walking. The door was still open, and Tone rushed inside, calling out as he went, "Old Man, are you awake? I heard young Hien say you were up." There was no reply. He didn't know if the old man was awake or just too tired to speak. Without asking further, Tone quickly ran further inside without a second thought. As he burst through the door, he immediately screamed in horror at the sight within. The terrifying scene caused him to stumble forward, yelling in panic, "Goodness, someone's dead. Help, someone's dead." In front of him, right inside the house, Old Man was still there. He hadn't left. But his condition would make anyone who saw him faint instantly. On the main pillar opposite the front door, Old Man was fixed in a standing position, his feet slightly raised forward, his head slumped down, blood dripping from his mouth. His eyes were wide open, his mouth agape, blood staining his teeth. But that wasn't the most horrifying thing Tone saw. The fear on Tone's face came from the sight of a knife-piercing Old Man's abdomen. Tone could only force himself to look that far. Terrified, he gathered all his strength and rushed outside, screaming, "Is anyone there? A murder! Someone's dead!" The quiet village was once again plunged into silent dread, and his frantic screams quickly drew the attention of nearby villagers. They, too, rushed over to inquire, focusing their attention on Old Man's house. Old Man had died a painful death. A glance was enough to understand that someone had brutally harmed him. But who was the culprit? And what was the reason for such a savage act? This required going back a bit to before young Hien left the house to report to Tone. While Hien was sitting in front of the house, she heard Old Man cough. She rushed inside and asked, "Old Man, are you coughing?" Old Man, seeing young Hien, the daughter of a young couple living near his house who was struggling, said, "Oh, is that Hien? Why are you here now?" The girl recounted how Tone had asked her to stay and look after him. Old Man then understood. "Oh, so that's it, you've been here ever since?" "Yes, sir. My parents are at the funeral. They probably won't be going anywhere, so I'll stay here, sir." Old Man nodded. As he was about to say something, the girl interrupted. "Uncle Tone told me to run and tell him when you woke up. You're awake now. I'm leaving." Old Man didn't say much, just nodded. "All right, then be careful. Don't run too fast and fall." Hien obediently left the old man's house. Old Man felt a bit tired but still managed to get up and leave his room. He went to the main house and sat on a wooden chair. As he sat down, he suddenly heard footsteps outside, quite heavy, which surprised him. Hien had said she would go report to Tone. Perhaps he would return here upon hearing the news that he was awake, but he didn't want to think that quickly because the child had only just left the house. And it would take some time to reach Tone, not too long but not too short either. Curious, the old man thought that Tone might already be on his way back, arriving faster than expected. He simply sat there waiting without standing up. Outside, the footsteps slowly drew closer. Old Man was surprised when the person who stepped through the doorway and stood there was young Hien. "Oh, I thought you went to tell Uncle Tone? Why are you back?" The girl didn't answer. It was darker than before, and due to his old age, Old Man's vision wasn't clear, so he only recognized Hien's figure. "What's wrong, child? Are you scared being alone? Never mind, just come back inside and stay with me." He took 2 steps, then Old Man froze, trembling, because suddenly the girl looked at him and laughed. The sound was not from her mouth but seemed to echo from a distant, unknown realm. "What are you laughing at?" The girl didn't answer but stood still. Her cackling laughter was incredibly eerie. Old Man thought, what kind of spirit laughs so terrifyingly? So he said, "You're not Hien. Who are you? What are you?" The being Old Man spoke to, still in the form of a child, laughed even louder upon hearing this. The laughter sounded as if it wanted to consume him. "You guessed right, now it's time to die." As soon as it finished speaking, Old Man felt a ghostly presence lunge straight at him. He felt his abdomen clench, and his mouth gaped open in excruciating pain. The demonic laughter continued, followed by sounds of retching. Something slimy was forcefully expelled from its mouth, and finally, a gurgling sound indicated that Old Man had been forced to swallow something into his stomach. Just as Old Man felt the pain in his abdomen, elsewhere, young Hien had just run to Ken's house to find Tone and inform him that Old Man had woken up. In the present, when the villagers heard Tone's frantic screams and rushed over, they were told about Old Man and ran to see. Upon arrival, everyone was horrified and cried out. Needless to say, everyone was scared stiff. In just one day, from morning till night, there had been 2 deaths involving Linh. Before that could even be fully processed, Old Man had also passed away in a very mysterious manner. Old Man had always been a kind and gentle person, and his family wasn't wealthy. Yet he was brutally murdered. Only one person must have been aware of what was happening, Tone. However, he wasn't the one who harmed those 2, but it was due to something else. He knew something, but his mind was no longer clear enough to speak, and he didn't know how to make everyone believe him. This story goes back a long time when several elders around Old Man Man's age were still alive. At that time, there were 4 or 5 old men in the hamlet who, due to their advanced age, had passed away one after another, leaving only Old Man Man alive until this afternoon. On that particular day, there was a feast in the village, and the elders gathered to talk. They didn't understand why Man was so tense when discussing something, and Tone, who was completely drunk, sat sleeping in a corner. The elders in their conversation didn't notice that Tone had woken up and heard almost the entire story. Tone wanted to ask them, but they were afraid he would ask too many questions and draw attention, so they vaguely told him. Tone was horrified upon hearing this. "What? Such a thing is happening in our village?" One of the elders nodded and said, "But that was just a what-if scenario. Decades have passed, and we don't know if that master's words were truly accurate. However, if people start dying like this in the next few years, then this place will face a great calamity." Tone began to tremble. "Goodness, is it true that 5 people will die like that, old man? Someone buried alive, someone stabbed with a knife, someone dead on an ancient tree, someone drowned, someone burned to death, and now someone buried alive again?" Old Man Man shook his head, looking tense. "Not 5 people, but this entire village will die, dying according to the 5 elements: metal, wood, water, fire, earth. The first one to die, buried underground, that is earth." Tone then asked, "But why earth? Isn't metal the first of the 5 elements?" Old Man Man explained, "Earth is in the last position of the 5 elements, but the end is also the beginning. To put it simply, the end is the beginning or a cycle. That means they never stop." The more Old Man Man explained, the more Tone trembled. He stammered, "If that's true, isn't there any way to resolve it?" "There is, but we need to find a powerful master to help. That master could only suppress it, preventing this from happening. We had time to find another master, but we haven't found anyone yet. But why are you so afraid of it now? Is it true? Has the deadline that master spoke of arrived, and the suppression has stopped working, evidenced by something attacking our chickens last night, killing them all, nowhere to be found?" Hearing this, Tone grew even more terrified and asked again. Old Man Man replied, "Yes, but that's just the beginning. When the suppression truly stops working, what dies won't be animals but humans." Another elder also said, "And once the cycle of the 5 elements is complete, this entire village is sure to die." "You can't run, even if you want to. We should just tell them to leave now." The other elder sighed. "No, even if we leave now, it won't solve anything. If we go, something bad will surely happen." According to the elders, neither staying nor leaving would solve the problem. The only way was to find a powerful master. It had been years since Tone learned about this. The elders had repeatedly warned him not to speak of it to anyone, lest it cause panic. Over time, the elders had also passed away one by one. The last elder who knew about this, Old Man Man, was brutally murdered today. Tone screamed in horror and fled. "It's true. It's happening. Villagers, someone else has died. Run, everyone, quickly leave this village." The villagers and the government officials were all bewildered by his state. He seemed to have gone mad after witnessing Old Man Man's death. How horrifying Old Man Man's death was, everyone knew, to the point of causing someone to show signs of madness, truly beyond imagination. Tone was the first to discover Old Man Man's body and notice strange symptoms, so he couldn't escape suspicion. Therefore, an official told his subordinate, "Go follow him and see where he's going. He's very suspicious right now." Kai nodded and followed the man. After a while, he couldn't catch up with Tone. "Hey, sir, calm down. I know you're scared by what you saw, but you really need to calm down." Before he could finish his sentence, Tone grabbed his arm and spoke frantically. "Run, young men, run. Everyone must run. Everyone must flee from here. No one can stay or everyone will die. The next death is wood, the next is wood." Tone didn't know where he found the strength, but he ran incredibly fast, weaving through narrow paths. The official waited for a while but suddenly lost sight of him. Since his superior had given instructions, he didn't dare to be negligent and continued searching, calling out as he went, "Sir, don't hide, come out. You're only a suspect. If you're a witness, you definitely won't be harmed." He thought that Tone was running away because he was afraid of being implicated as the first one to discover Old Man Man, or perhaps he was the one who harmed the old man. If the man truly had problems, the official tried to continue for about 30 minutes until he was too tired and stopped to rest. His eyes scanned the surroundings, wondering where Tone could have hidden. But after a moment, he felt something uncomfortable dripping onto his head. At first, he thought it was rainwater dripping from the leaves. but when the liquid ran down his cheek and felt sticky, he realized something was wrong. He quickly moved aside, bringing his hand to the sticky substance on his cheek, then brought it to his nose. Recognizing it was blood, a chill ran down his spine. He slowly looked up at the tree trunk, and what he saw high above on a broken branch was a human body hanging there. It was already dark. The official could only make out a man's body, his abdomen pierced by the tree branch hanging high up. It was Tone. Being new to the job, with little experience and not having witnessed many brutal deaths, he immediately fell to his knees, trembling in horror. For about 15-20 minutes, Tone had been running with all his might, as if being chased by someone. Perhaps it was the young officer, but no, it wasn't. Tone wasn't running from the officer, but from the sensation of death. Tone constantly felt something terrifying approaching him. Tone ran, constantly looking back, whimpering in fear. Then, without looking ahead, he collided with someone and fell to the ground. After a few seconds, Tone looked up to see who he had run into. Right in front of him was the officer who had been chasing him earlier. Tone couldn't understand how he could be there. Wasn't he behind him? The other person didn't reply. Tone only saw the officer's lips twitch into an eerie, demonic smile, unlike any normal person. He stammered, "What do you want?" The person in front of him stood rigidly, staring at him, a chilling smile on his lips. Tone truly felt that the person standing before him was not right. Don't scare me, I'm not afraid." As he finished speaking, Tone saw the figure take a step towards him. The closer it got, the more clearly he perceived its face despite the darkness. Before he could say anything more, a chilling, dead hand gripped his throat. In his ear, he distinctly heard a ghostly voice, "It's time to die." In the present time, the young officer, not daring to be afraid, lay motionless on the ground for a while before he could gather the strength to get up and run to report to others. Tone had truly died, the third death discovered today. 3 consecutive deaths plunged the villagers into utter panic. Everyone was pale, and no one dared to approach when Tone's body was brought down. The officer told the villagers, "Everyone, please go home. Let us do our work. We will definitely find out the truth to prevent further incidents." After saying that, the officer returned to where he had assigned his subordinate to follow Tone earlier. At this moment, Kai was sitting in a corner, trembling. "Kai, what happened? Why did that man die, and in that position, didn't you?" "I didn't do anything, sir. I was following him, but the paths here are unfamiliar, and I kept losing track of him. I searched until I got here, but how long did you lose sight of him? How could he die like that?" "I don't know, sir. I was tired, so I stopped to rest, and then I saw blood dripping down. I looked up." Kai's face grew paler and paler as he spoke, then he looked at his superior and continued, "But earlier, when I caught him, he said something strange to me." "What did he say? What did he say?" "He said, 'Run, run. Everyone here will die if they don't. The next one is wood.'" Kai then anxiously looked at the tree where Tone had tragically died. His superior understood and asked, "So wood is the tree?" Kai nodded. The superior officer chuckled. He must have been too panicked when he saw the body, or perhaps he himself committed the murder and went insane. These superstitious tales are not something we should pay attention to. Suddenly, Kai said nothing, his silence making the officer confused. He turned to look, and Kai's eyes were fixed on him. "What's wrong? Why are you looking at me like that? I didn't mean to imply I don't believe you, but those words are," Kai interrupted. "The next death corresponds to water." "What did you say?" Kai didn't answer but fainted on the spot. Realizing what Kai had said was strange, the officer had to tell his subordinates, "Guys, take Kai to rest." He fainted. Watching Kai being carried away, the officer couldn't help but feel a chill. He wondered what Kai's last words meant. He was still busy investigating the crime scene when a subordinate rushed over in a panic. "Sir, something's happened to Kai. He's dead." The officer turned, startled. "What? Kai's dead. How did he die?" "Someone found him dead in the ditch near the commune office." The atmosphere once again became tense. This was the 4th death today, and it was only around 10 p.m. Overhead, black clouds gathered again, and the deafening sound of thunder echoed. In the village, when people received news of another death, especially a government official, they became even more terrified. In just one short day, from the moment Can dug up his daughter's body in the field until now, there had been 3 more consecutive deaths: Old Man, Tone, and the officer named Kai. The 4 deaths corresponded to earth, metal, wood, and water, respectively. This meant that the cycle Old Man spoke of years ago was complete. Only 1, or rather 2 more deaths would complete the cycle: fire, and then another death corresponding to earth. At that point, the entire village would not escape calamity. Everyone feared that someone in the village would die mysteriously every day. However, after that day, the villagers didn't find any more deaths. Until that afternoon on the main road, two people, one old and one young, an old man with silvery hair leading a young boy, were walking. They suddenly stopped and the boy asked, "Grandpa, what's wrong?" The old man looked at the narrow dirt path and quietly replied, "It seems there's trouble here, big trouble." "What kind of trouble, Grandpa?" "People have died here, many people. We should help them, shouldn't we?" "Yes, Grandpa, let's help them, Grandpa." "All right, let's go." With that, they turned and walked towards the path, which likely led into a village. Just as they thought, after a short walk inside, they saw many houses clustered together. Entering a tea shop, the old man told the tea seller, "A cup of tea and a cake for us." The tea seller, seeing the unfamiliar old man and young boy, asked, "It seems you and the boy aren't from around here." The old man nodded and introduced himself as Tao, just passing through. The tea seller immediately said, "If you're from elsewhere, it's best to drink your tea and leave. Don't get involved in what's happening inside the village. I don't mean to drive you away, but there are big troubles happening here. They're investigating, and if they see strangers coming in, they might become suspicious. I see you're old and unlikely to cause trouble, but you shouldn't get involved." Tao then asked, and the tea-selling woman recounted everything that had happened in the past few days. Tao listened, nodding thoughtfully. One person was found buried underground. One person was stabbed with a knife and stuck to a house pillar. One person died hanging from a broken tree branch, and one person drowned in a ditch. "Is that right, sir?" The tea seller nodded. Tao sighed, her gaze fixed deeply into the village. "Could it be that this village is under an elemental suppression?" "What is elemental suppression, madame?" the tea seller asked, a bit flustered. Tao explained, "It means this village has truly been suppressed by some elemental magic for some reason. The 4 recent deaths seem inexplicable at first, but if you pay attention, you'll see they correspond to the 5 elements." "What are the 5 elements, madame?" "The 5 elements are metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. The 4 deaths you just mentioned correspond to earth, metal, wood, and water. The only thing is the order isn't what I just said, but reversed: earth, metal, wood, water. And the missing element is fire, meaning the next person to die will die by fire." "Really, madame? Is this truly happening?" Tao nodded and said, "From the moment I was still out on the main road, I sensed something was wrong in this village, which is why I came here, probably to ask about the situation and see what was happening. To me, it's already an elemental suppression." The more the tea seller heard, the more frightened she became, though she still didn't fully believe it. "But how do you know all this, are you?" "Yes, I am exactly who you're thinking of. However, if I am to help, I need the consent of the villagers here. I can only confirm that I know what is currently happening here." The tea seller was skeptical but knew there was no other way. She ran to call the villagers, who gathered around. Tao looked them over and said, "First, let me ask, does anyone in this village currently know anything about this matter but is unwilling to speak?" Everyone looked at each other and shook their heads. Tao continued, "I must say everyone needs to be honest. If you know and don't speak up, disaster will fall upon you, and I won't be able to help." At this, the villagers' faces changed color, and they nervously looked at each other. Tao looked around, and seeing no one showing signs of hesitation, she said, "All right, I believe everyone. Perhaps those who knew are all dead." The village became agitated. Tao no longer hid anything and began to explain about what was called elemental suppression. It's a type of formation created for a not-so-good purpose. However, to complete it, it takes 50-60 years. To set up the formation, it requires the blood of 5 people, corresponding to the 5 elements: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, and these people must live in the suppressed area. After being placed, after a waiting period almost a lifetime long, the formation begins to take effect. It only waits until a total of 6 people die in the sequence of earth, metal, wood, water, fire, and then earth again, at which point the spell is considered complete. At that time, deaths will occur even more rapidly than now. According to Tao's explanation, those chosen were the descendants of the 5 people whose blood was used for the suppression years ago. These were individuals who, solely for the future of their descendants, mercilessly invited a master to create this thing. Tao then said, "I know one thing, those 5 people are all dead. One of them is the oldest person who died a few days ago." A villager immediately exclaimed, "Could it be Old Man Man?" "Yes, that's right, if not him, then who else?" But he lived alone, all his children and grandchildren. Everyone then recounted that Old Man Man originally had a wife and children, but they all died young. As a result, he had lived alone for many years, and his personality was gentle and kind. Tao shook her head. That's exactly why Old Man Man died so tragically. The people who participated in the suppression should not have died as horribly as you all described. The proof is that those who passed away simply did so from old age and illness. As for Old Man Man, his original reason for participating in this was not because he hoped his descendants would live prosperous and glorious lives. But his children and wife all died young, so he no longer believed in it and couldn't explain it to anyone. Tao slowly explained, elemental suppression is a killing spell designed to kill many people, specifically those chosen as descendants by the 5 who participated in it. And if 2 more people die, the cycle of death will be complete. At that point, it will be impossible to save anyone. The crowd looked at each other in fear and asked, "So what do we do now?" Tao replied, "Does anyone have a map of this area? Can I borrow it?" A small map was quickly brought over. Tao then asked the villagers to mark the locations of the 4 previous deaths. She connected them with a straight line. Tao suddenly selected a point on the map and connected it to the 4 previous positions. Everyone was astonished to see that it formed a 5-pointed star. Tao then said, "This is the location of the next death corresponding to fire. Do any of you know who lives here?" A trembling man pointed to the marked old man and said, "That's Ken's house." The crowd looked at each other. Only now did they notice that only Chien was present, so they asked, "Where's Can? What's going on?" Chien stammered, "Earlier, he told me to go home first and do some chores and he would come later." Tao told the crowd to quickly head towards Ken's house. At the house, Ken was standing before his daughter's altar, his face filled with sorrow. He still hoped to quickly find the person who had harmed his daughter and make them pay. Lost in thought, he heard footsteps outside. The sky had already darkened. Thinking his wife had returned, Ken turned. Chien was standing there, but she wasn't responding. What was happening outside that so many people were gathering? Ken saw that the person who had appeared was Chien, but she didn't reply, standing still, her lips slightly parted in a smile. "What's wrong with you, wife? I asked you and you're not answering." Opposite him, Chien stood motionless as a statue, a chilling smile playing on her lips, and her eyes flashed with a strange, fire-like light. Ken felt a chill run through him and asked, "What's wrong, wife? Where did you come from and why are you like this?" For a moment, Ken closed his eyes in fear, feeling the surroundings grow darker and darker. Then he started to notice Chien's face was not normal. Or rather, the person standing in front of him wasn't Chien. "Who are you? Who are you, really?" "I'm your wife, your wife." "No, you're not my wife. Who are you? What are you?" The figure opposite him no longer answered but flashed a smile that made Ken feel like his insides would rupture. "You guessed right, it's time to die." Before he could stammer anything more, Ken felt a blazing red light engulf him and smoke billowed into the house from somewhere. He screamed, "Fire, fire, where is this fire coming from?" He desperately wanted to flee, to rush outside. But as he took one step, he felt a crushing force block him. The figure laughed maniacally, a laugh that struck terror into Ken's very soul. "Is anyone there? Is anyone there? Save me?" Outside, at Tao's urging, the villagers rushed forward. Their rapid footsteps quickly led them to Can and Chien's house. Chien was among the fastest runners. Each step felt incredibly heavy, but her intuition told her that her husband was in danger, so she pushed herself to run. When they reached the gate, before the crowd could do anything, Chien burst inside, screaming, "Goodness, Can, what are you doing? Stop it!" As she reached the door, Chien witnessed Can using a prepared torch to set himself on fire. The flames immediately flared up. Yet, for some reason, Can showed no signs of pain. He simply sat on the ground, his face vacant. He held the torch, which he had prepared from somewhere, against his body. The shirt he was wearing had caught fire and was burning fiercely. Chien rushed inside, horrified that her husband was trying to set himself ablaze. She grabbed a piece of cloth nearby and frantically beat it against his body to put out the flames. "Can, we've already lost our daughter. How can you do this?" Chien desperately tried to put out the fire, but it was too much. Just then, Tao arrived. Without hesitation, she quickly grabbed Ken's mouth, took a small bottle of liquid from her pocket, and forcefully poured it down his throat. Ken immediately fell unconscious. Tao sighed. "Luckily, we made it in time. If he had died, it would have been difficult to save anyone." After saying this, Tao instructed, "First, use ropes to tie him up. Then, gather some people here to guard Can. The rest of you, lead me to the locations of the 4 previous deaths, starting with the first one." Everyone agreed, with a large group staying to watch over Can. The others followed Tao to the places where people had died. First, to Can and Chien's field, where they quickly found the spot where he had dug up his daughter's body. Tao immediately used her bare hands to dig. Others wanted to help, but she stopped them. No one knew what she was digging for, but she continued with all her might, digging with her bare hands until her fingernails were almost bleeding, yet she didn't stop. When the hole was nearly 2 spans deep for an adult, something at the bottom was revealed. It was a small wooden box, the size of a palm. Without rushing to open it, Tao told everyone to lead her to Old Man Man's house. Inside the house, Tao quickly used her abilities to light incense and perform a ritual. She pointed a few burning incense sticks in one direction, then told everyone to lift the floorboards. Then, she started digging by hand and found a similar box. They repeated this at the other locations. Meanwhile, back at the house, Chien and the others were carefully watching Can. He was lying still, then suddenly his eyes flew open and he said, "It's time to die." Can bolted upright, tearing free from the ropes, startling everyone. He rushed to the fireplace, frantically grabbing burning embers, pushing away anyone who tried to stop him, striking them in the face. With flames in his hands, he grinned. "It's time to die, it's time to die." Without further hesitation, Can pressed the flames to his own body. The remaining crowd could only stare, speechless and terrified. They thought his entire body would soon be consumed by fire. Luckily, that didn't happen. Outside, in the ditch where Kai's body was found, Tao and a few others had just dug up a wooden box. She had intended to destroy all 5 boxes at once, but Tao knew that Can was currently at the brink of death at his house, so she had to act quickly at each location, not waiting for the other 4 boxes. Tao then said, "All right, now let's go back there. We will definitely find the remaining box. Destroying it will hopefully resolve the village's danger." Everyone followed Tao back to Can's house. When they arrived, Can had fallen unconscious after trying to self-immolate and was lying on the spot. Chien was distraught. "Madame, is he all right?" "Don't worry, everything is fine now," Tao quickly said. Then she looked at Chien and continued, "I can truly resolve this matter properly. It's just a pity that to save your husband, I had to do some things against the rules. I should have destroyed all 5 boxes used for the elemental suppression and earned merit. However, I was forced to act contrary to that. Now, to destroy the remaining box, the only way is to destroy this house. If you agree, please take out all essential belongings from your family. Of course, I will check if they can be taken." Chien didn't hesitate and immediately agreed. Everyone helped carry out important and usable items from the house. Then, the villagers prepared to set the house ablaze. Once everything was completely consumed by fire and the flames died down, Tao told everyone to clean up together. At that point, everyone was amazed to see an enormous burn mark on the ground, forming a Chinese character. According to Tao's explanation, this character meant Earth. This was the starting point and also the end point of the cycle of death. Tao also said, if he had died, the next person to die would surely have been his wife. I understand now. The girl's death corresponded to Earth, marking the end of the 5 elements, the final death that completed the cycle of killing, and she was a young person in the family. Truly, the individuals who enacted this suppression on this peaceful land were too cruel. Fortunately, the ordeal finally ended without anyone else having to die. The atmosphere in the village remained gloomy and oppressive for a long time, and whenever anyone mentioned it, they would shiver with a cold dread. The horrifying series of deaths that occurred in a single day became a haunting story that no one ever wanted to speak of again, nor did they want to remember the merciless individuals who enacted the suppression, placing a curse on this seemingly peaceful land. It turned out that decades ago, when Tone accidentally overheard the elders' conversation, they hadn't revealed the full truth but had steered the story in a different direction, saying that the land was cursed and they needed to find a skilled master to break it. But those individuals never wanted to find such a person. They waited until the suppression began to take effect and the deaths in the village started, only then closing their eyes in peace. It's possible that Old Man Man truly wanted to speak out and warn everyone many times but couldn't. Every time he had the intention, he would dream of someone dying horribly in the village, as if a warning that speaking out would immediately condemn the villagers to death. Old Man Man knew the regret and sorrow. He just tried to live and silently prayed that someone would appear to save everyone. He also hoped that the events wouldn't happen, and when things started, he wanted to warn everyone, but then he was killed by that cursed entity. Even Tone, who knew somewhat about this story,